Hello, this is Silpra and welcome to this YouTube channel. Following my introductory video that I posted a few weeks back, today's video covers step 1 of 7 of the series. I will share with you step 1 of entering into the humanitarian sector and navigating your way through it. I intend to do this by sharing with you 3 key messages. The first message would be walking you through how to identify what contribution you can make in the humanitarian sector. The second step will take you through the options that are available in the humanitarian sector. And lastly, I'll walk you through the strengths that you can bring by being the most suitable candidate rather than just being eligible for employment. Knowing the contribution that you can bring is key to packaging yourself ready for the role that you want to take in a humanitarian sector. Anything that you think of always determines your feelings, but it's not until you take action that you begin to work towards the desired result. It all begins with identifying the problem that you want to solve. So just for a minute, I want you to just close your eyes. I want you to inhale, exhale, breathe in, breathe out. And for the last time, I want you to inhale and exhale again. Picture yourself serving in a local community, in an area where there is need, or even in a local charity shop near you, or in a war-torn country where your services are required. Where do you see yourself serving over the next 1 to 5 years? Do you see yourself treating sick refugees in a hospital in a war-torn country? Do you see yourself supporting lactating mothers or malnourished children to access supplements in a refugee camp setup? Do you want to contribute to building toilets for local inhabitants who've recently experienced a cyclone? Do you want to lead in drilling wells for returnee internally displaced populations? Or are you interested in teaching in a school where the need arises? Do you picture yourself registering new refugees fleeing war-torn countries as they arrive in a temporary shelter? Or do you want to support the programs by procuring the necessary goods and services? Or just working in a warehouse, contributing to the distribution of non-food items for beneficiaries? Are you better placed to serve in finance and take safe custody of donor funds? And lastly, do you maybe want to lead in a women economic empowerment program or ensure access to justice? The possibilities are endless. But what is important is for you to first identify what contribution you can bring and package yourself ready for that role. So step 1 is about identifying the need that is there and how you can contribute to it. I'll now move on to the second step, which is about taking that initiative to research on the available options that are available for you. There are various ways to join the humanitarian sector. It could be through referrals, like I personally, while in university, during my 3rd year, I had a roommate whose husband happened to have been working in Kakuma refugee camp in northern Kenya. My roommate's husband visited, and I began asking questions. I wanted to know more about the work he was doing in the camp. And to cut the long story short, by the time he was going back to Kakuma refugee camp, I had the contact of the head of the sub-office in Kakuma refugee camp. And that began my journey in the humanitarian sector. It's been 18 good years and still counting. I'm on my 10th country to date. The second option for you to join the humanitarian sector is to research on online options. And there are various online sites that you could look into. There's reliefweb.int, which I'll walk you through in a minute. There's DevNet Jobs, or there's even individual agency websites that you can go into and look at the options that are available for you. For me, I totally trust reliefweb.int. Reason being, my first 4 international postings, I got the adverts through reliefweb.int. My first role with International Medical Corps in Darfur was through the same channel. And so was my second role with the International Rescue Committee in Liberia. And the third role with Mercy Corps, both in Sudan and South Sudan. And even my first United Nations role with UN OCHA in Myanmar was through ReliefWeb. So I totally trust ReliefWeb as a starting point. And that's why I want to just walk you through ReliefWeb if you want to join the humanitarian sector. And I'll just share my screen. And let's assume you're interested in joining relief work. The website is reliefweb.int. And when you go to reliefweb.int, you click on the jobs. So let's assume you're a fresh graduate seeking to join humanitarian work. You barely have much experience. There are various options available for you. And if you click on the job type, there's the option of internship, because consultancy will require a bit of experience. There's the option of jobs, and this could be maybe jobs requiring 0 to 2 years. And there's the option of volunteer opportunities. Let's assume you're looking for internships, and both internships and volunteer jobs, there are those that are paid and those that are not paid. So you need to see what your preferences are and what works for you. So let's just, for purposes of our example, assume you are a fresh graduate looking to look at what internship options are available. So just click on internships, add it, and then let's assume that your years of experience, you have 0 to 2 years of experience. So under years of experience, I'm assuming you've not worked too much. So you either have 0 to 2 years of experience. So I'll click on that, add it. And because you have more than one option and you want a complete match of both options, instead of choosing any of, you go ahead and click all of in both options. And then you click on the search button. And there you'll get some of the available options of internships that are available. There are plenty of them that are there at the moment that we could work with. And let's assume, for purposes of our example, that you choose to eventually go for an internship role in Switzerland with the IOM. Or assume, for example, that you're interested in working in programs. Actually, we can filter down by one more category, and that will be by the career category. And let's assume you want to work in program management, program or project management. The options are there, and it's up to you to just choose what works for you based on your qualifications. So I'll choose program, add it to the search. And now we have 3 options. You're looking for an internship in program management that requires 0 to 2 years of experience. So you go ahead and search and assume you want to work in Africa. I'll choose the second internship, which is the internship that is in Côte d'Ivoire, which is Ivory Coast. Click on the link and it will actually give you the job descriptions. You can do this for any job, whether it's internship or a paid job or anything that interests you, or even volunteer job. So the key thing is to look at the job description and see if you meet the qualifications for the role. You see it's in Ivory Coast, in Abidjan, with a United Nations agency called International Organization for Migration, which is IOM, in program or project management, and the required years of experience is 0 to 2 years. So basically, if you're a fresh graduate, you already qualify to apply for this. The key thing is to look at the responsibilities and accountabilities for the role. see if it matches your experience. And then the next thing that you really have to look at is the required qualification and experience. For this one, for purposes of this one, you see, it requires either a university degree in political science, international law, international studies. There are various options here. And then it requires languages. It requires French and English as a requirement. So the key thing then is to just search, look through the description of the job, look at the qualifications and see if it matches your profile. That is the first main step. And you can do this for any internship based on the location that you want to work in. The possibilities are limitless, but you just need to learn to research. Personally, I started off as an intern in Kakuma refugee camp. After a few years, I moved on to paid work with the international charities, and eventually I moved to the United Nations. So you just need to check the possibilities, expand your searches by the job type, which is basically the consultancy, internship. Jobs refer to paid job, mostly paid work, and then there's volunteer opportunities. Learn to filter by experience, the years of experience. If your experience is more than 2 years, then you can choose the higher level, which is maybe 3 to 4 years or up to 10 years plus. Learn to filter also by themes, because in the theme is also where you need to know, for example, if you have a degree in water sanitation engineering, then a relevant area will be all the jobs that are in water and sanitation and hygiene. If you have a degree in food, in nutrition, for example, you might want all the options that are there in food and nutrition. The list is endless, so you just need to learn to research, refine your searches, and the possibilities are endless. So I'll not explore too much of that. I'll leave you to do your research, because one thing you need to learn is the needs are always changing. The possibilities are always changing. So you also have to learn to do your research. Moving on to the third thing that I wanted to highlight. Once you know what area you want to work in, once you do your research, explore all the options and refine down to what you really want. The most important thing is profiling yourself, making yourself ready to be the most suitable person for that role. And here I'm going to point 2 key things. The first key thing is knowing the distinction between being eligible for a role and being suitable for a role. In the example we had earlier, being eligible for that role would require you to have a degree, for example, in political science. For me, for example, if you're working in finance, it might be a degree in finance. However, from experience, there are now so many people who have degrees in finance, for example. So for you to be more suitable and not just eligible, you need to go an extra mile. So instead of aiming at having a bachelor's degree, aim at having a master's degree, or if not, have the first degree and have the relevant certification for that role. For example, if it's accounting, which is my area, it's important not just to have a degree that has accounting or finance in it, but also have a certification such as ACCA or CPA. The certifications are different depending on the field that you intend to work in. So just do your research again and know what certifications are relevant. And if you're still wondering where to get this, all this information is in the site I just took you through. As you look through each job description, as you look through the requirements, the experience that is required, the degree that is required, the competencies that are required, you learn, notice the difference. And always aim to go an extra mile, because that is what will make you more suitable than somebody else who's just eligible. Because let's take an example of an advert that ends up having 60 people who meet the basic requirements. The employer might want to narrow down, and it's just that extra qualification, that having that master's degree and extra years of experience that might make a difference. The other key thing other than certification that I want to highlight that would make you more suitable, it's now very relevant that you have at least 2 of the 6 languages that I'm going to highlight. And though the other languages that are required based on the operational context, it's very critical that you have at least 2 languages out of English, French, Spanish, Arabic, Russian, and Chinese. These 6 languages, English, French, Spanish, Arabic, Russian, and Chinese, would make a difference between you and the other candidate, because most organizations now, whether it's international charities or the United Nations organizations, require fluency in at least 2 languages, especially as you go higher up in the hierarchy. So it's critical that if you haven't started thinking of a second language, then you start thinking about it now. I'll give you my experience. All along, I've mostly used English. And though I studied French in high school up to my 4th form or O levels, I never continued with it. But recently, I learned that for me to move to the next grade, I needed to have at least a second foreign language. So from 2 years ago, again, researching online through a site called PrePlay. There's a site called PrePlay that deals with the language tutors that do online language tutoring. I managed to connect with a tutor whose profile indicated that he actually used to teach French in Alliance Française in the French Institute in Cape Town. I linked up with him, and to cut the long story short, by the end of last year, I'd managed to obtain my certification at DELF B2 level, which is the basic requirement for a second language. So you can do the same thing. You can go to PrePlay, get a tutor of French, get a tutor of Spanish, get a tutor of Arabic, get a tutor of Chinese or Russian, and you'll only know when the time comes how much of a difference this will make in making you more suitable. It's also important to know that needs do change over time. And for any job you ever get to apply for, before you go to the step of submitting your application, learn more about the organization. You can go to the organization's website. And this is one other thing I forgot to mention, because other than referrals and the sites I mentioned, reliefweb.int, unjobs.org, or even dev.jobs.org, the other popular area which you could also have gotten to if you looked into the Relief Web searches that we just did, is to look at the individual agencies that are advertising. It's important to go to their website, learn the key themes, the key areas that they're currently working on, because that is what might also make a difference between you and the next candidates if you make it to the next step. For example, if you're working in the United Nations or looking for a job in the United Nations, you need to know something about the Sustainable Development Goals or Agenda 2030, going with the recent themes and what has been happening over the last few years. So personally, I chose to work in finance in Kakuma refugee camp. I went and I took a master's degree in gender and international development, because at some point I wanted to move to programs. Unfortunately, when I applied for the first job with the international agency that I joined, instead of them offering me a program role, they referred me to the adverts that they had in finance. And that's how I ended up in finance once again. But over time, I also realized that I needed to complete my accountancy qualification. And so I completed my ACCA accountancy qualification. So it's very, very important that you keep finding out what makes a difference between you and the next candidates, identify the gaps that you have, and work towards filling these gaps. So it's very, very important that you identify the skills you require in order to meet the required need that you want to support. So by way of closing, another reflection, just close your eyes and imagine you're drawing your vision board to depict where you want to be a year from now, or even 5 years from now. Think of your educational qualifications at the moment. Think of your career aspirations. Think of your relationships, because all these factors will guide the options that are available for you. Are there any gaps that you identify that makes you merely eligible and not suitable for the role that you want? If there is, then you need to take action. So I look forward to seeing you in my next video. Whatever you envisage for now, work on filling in the gaps. And if you're interested in the next video, don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel and also click on the bell to follow up on step 2 of the 7 steps in my next video. Bye for now.